So I think it's, in the spirit of IMI projects, it's, the representation that you have on the panel today, showing the, industry representatives, clinical and researchers as well. It really shows how we are working as IMI consortiums. So I'm just going to talk to you about ROADMAP, which has got a slightly different theme from the other two projects that you've heard about. So, and the focus is really on what we call RWE, real-world evidence. So really just want to make sure that there's a good understanding about what RWE is used, what it is, what it's used for, what the real challenges that are faced, particularly in a disease like Alzheimer's disease, and how ROADMAP is trying to address those challenges, and really make it clear what an integral part the individuals with Alzheimer's and their caregivers and the patient organisation it has within ROADMAP. So RWE is something that we all contribute to in a way. So it's things like when we go and see the doctor, data that is recorded and sometimes captured in research databases. It's insurance data when we make medical claims, and also as well as any patient particular cohort studies. So that's what we call RWE. It's probably a technical term for things that exist that you were aware of anyway. And it's used to support in combination with other types of data within drug development. So like clinical trials have already been mentioned, and health economic studies and different types of studies. And it's really with the purpose of informing across drug development, for example, understanding, making sure that you understand the patient population properly that you're aiming to treat, understanding what healthcare practices are when drugs are actually used in the market. So it's pretty much everywhere. And it's really important that it's a really important piece of evidence for us to work on. It's particularly important in things like safety, to understanding safety outcomes when drugs are on the market, and understanding why we should use one drug rather than another in a comparative purpose. So this is inherent within our existence, not just within research. Okay, and the particular challenges within Alzheimer's. There are lots of data sources existing, but there's no real consensus on what should be collected for what particular domain. So if we're looking at cognitive functioning, we know there are a large number of outcome measures available, and there's no consistency about what is collected in different types of data sources. And what is collected, particularly in earlier stages of the disease, is different to what's collected in the later stages of disease. So it makes it linking up more primary care data capture to more cohort data is a difficult link, and clinical trial data, again, will collect more sophisticated data or different types of outcomes. When we come to understand how the disease progresses, that creates a real challenges when looking at different types of data sources. And this slide just represents, the schematic just represents the different symptoms that tend to appear through the different stages of the disease. So much earlier in the stage in the disease, we're looking more at capturing biomarker information, whereas we progress to looking at cognitive aspects, functional aspects, and behavioural aspects until sort of long-term care outcomes. So this is a real challenge in how we use existing data sources to understand the whole paradigm of Alzheimer's. So, but this also does create opportunities. There are, as I say, there are many existing data sources out there. And this is where you sort of have a sort of a pyramid of evidence, which becomes more and more specialised in terms of the scope of the population. So obviously we are able to capture within the general population what we have from registries and health records to patient-reported outcomes. So those are things that are actually getting a response from the patient or the participant and how they're in measuring the outcome, cohort studies, and then clinical trials, which are a much more selected population. So there are opportunities to try and understand what methods we can use to leverage these different types of data. And we've put this into the schematic of what we call the data cube, so trying to understand what outcomes are relevant at what stage of the disease and what data sources contain those outcomes. So this is our visualization of how we're trying to understand RWE and the potential for how we can utilize it. So roadmap is the project, and really the long-term, the ultimate goal is obviously to understand how we bring data together for the ultimate benefit of those with Alzheimer's. Okay, and this is our consortium, and similar to what you've seen for EPAD, there's a wide range of industry, public partners, and Alzheimer's Europe have been a key partner in this project right from the start. This is the roadmap structure with the different work packages. I really just want to focus on the ones that are relevant to where the patient organisation comes in. So let me just click on. So work package 7, which is co-led by Alzheimer's Europe with Jean and his team, and with Lilly, with Laura Campo, really have a focus on making sure that there is a clear communication strategy that is going out to the wider AD and wider community, not within just the scientific or the industry community researchers. So they're really making sure that the information about roadmap is pushed out, that the understanding what the outcomes of roadmap and how those are disseminated. And I think we now need to add a snazzy video to this list of objectives, but really making sure that the understanding the outcomes are pushed on to maybe to a policy within the wider policy level as well, and making sure that we have the right people that we can contact to get feedback on for the experience of Alzheimer's with these particular deliverables that we have. So the work package 2 is looking at the outcomes, so understanding what are the key outcomes at the different stages of disease that are important, and by our key stakeholders. So when we talk about key stakeholders within roadmap, we cover a wide range of from the people with AD and their caregivers, the patient organisations, to the clinicians, the regulators, the payers, and the healthcare providers. So, as well as researchers as well. So we're really trying to get a consensus on what are the most appropriate outcomes that should be collected within RWE. And so getting feedback from the partners within Alzheimer's Europe is a real key part to that. So in terms of giving feedback on content of surveys and actually participating in surveys, and in some workshops where there will be more focus group discussions. And in fact, the web link there, or the email address, is for anybody that might be interested in taking part in these workshops. So the surveys have already been, the input has already gone into the survey content from the participants from Alzheimer's Europe, and they are already given feedback that's made an update to the survey. So that will be the survey will actually be going out to the patients and the caregivers and the professional participants within the next few months. Well, I think November is when it's meant to be going out, and that will be sent out via Alzheimer's Europe. And we're also interested, as I say, in patient participation within the workshops as well. One of the other work packages is getting feedback from, again, our key stakeholders. So an advisory board has been set up containing regulators, payers, HTA bodies who make decisions about whether launched drugs should go onto the market for access to patients. And this is This is an opportunity for us to get feedback on the deliverables in terms of, are we addressing the right outcomes? Are we looking at disease progression in the right way? And the patient organisation as well are participating in that and included as one of our key stakeholders. And we actually have our first face-to-face meeting with this group in 2 weeks' time, where there will be representation from Alzheimer Europe and one of our participants. And Craig already touched on the ethical aspect. Obviously, repurposing data that's already existing is quite a sensitive subject. We have to make sure that the right consent is in place. We have to ensure that the right ethical approvals are there. So really, it's really important that the view of the participant, the participants of Alzheimer's are included in that. So they are in our ethical advisory board, and there'll be more focus groups where they'll actually have patient and caregiver participation to ensure that the right approach is taken towards this sort of data integration. So what we want to get out of ROADMAP is really making sure that the outcomes that we identify are widely accepted across all the key stakeholders, and that are potentially can be utilised with what we call decision making. So in order to better understand the disease, better understand the impact of any new treatment coming on into availability. We really want to have clear methodology and how we integrate these different types of data and the usability of those. And those are tested out with different aspects of looking at disease progression and what potential treatment benefits will be. And very importantly is to have this consensus and agreement across not just industry and academic bodies, but also with the regulators, the payers and the patients who are part of this. So, thank you.